So we had a little bit of follow-on from last week's MFT video. A couple of questions from people which are asking things that I hadn't addressed in the video, and a couple of other things too. And let's start with the first one, height adjustment on the rail. That's adjustable both front and rear on these receivers, and it's really simple and really straightforward. It's just a single clamp which lifts the guide up and clamp down again. It's completely independent of the lateral movement, so you can take that off, return it, it's up against the stop, so it keeps its place laterally and it keeps its height as well. I've got to confess, because of the way my MFT is set up, because it's so tight against the wall here, I very rarely get to change the height at the back of the rail, so I tend to keep it set to 18mm pretty much constantly, and I just have a couple of pieces of scrap 12 and 6mm that I put underneath the workpiece if I'm cutting thinner stock, but 18mm is principally what I'm working with. So one of the other questions that came in was about the slop stop here. Again, I'm sorry I didn't make this clear. It's not a Festool accessory. It comes from a company called Tool Improvements in the US. The slop stop is machined from Delrin. It's a type of thermoplastic specified in high load applications. I think I paid about £20 for it. I forgot completely to put a link to that in the description of last week's video. I've rectified that, and there's one in that video now, and there'll be one in here as well. As I say, I think I paid about £20 for it, shipped to the UK, and definitely worth having if you do have an MFT. So one of the other questions that came in was why I prefer this to the newer style Festool MFT3, and really it all comes down to the fence principally. The newer Festool MFT was geared much more towards portable use. It was lighter, the fence and rail assembly is easier to disconnect. It's got a different profile around the edges to it. It's really geared up so that you could use it portably. You could take it out to a job site much more easily. All of those benefits are absolutely of no benefit to me when I have essentially a static bench like this. In fact, because of the way the fence is arranged, you actually lose cross-cut capacity on the newer one, so I prefer this older one and its old style fence. Now, one of the things I didn't mention in the previous video was this. I route a little groove where the rail drops down and where the cut line is going to be. I've routed a little groove out of there to take a 9mm sacrificial strip of MDF, so that's easily replaceable along the cut line when it gets overly worn. I probably could have got away with 6mm to be honest, but this was pretty chewed through, and 9mm seemed like a good idea at the time. And that's just held in place with double-sided tape normally, and when that gets worn you can just take that out and slot in a new piece. And then lastly, it was a question of why 96mm centres for the holes in the top. There's no hard and fast reason for it, as far as I can tell, other than the fact that 96 is a multiple of the 32mm system. I've done a bit of digging, and I did turn up quite a good story on Festool Owners Group. I'll put a link in the description below as to why the 32mm system came about in the first place. But there's no particular reason, as far as I can tell, for these holes to be spaced at 96mm centres. It doesn't make a multiple of anything when you get the bench dogs in there. So I don't really know, to be perfectly honest, other than the fact that it's a multiple of the 32mm system. That's all I can think of, and it's a convenient sort of sized spaced hole. So that's it. I hope you found this little follow-on video useful. I hope it's answered some of your questions. If you did find it useful, give it a thumbs up, share it out amongst your friends, and do consider subscribing. If you haven't already done so, just check back on a Friday when there's always something new up at noon. I'll see you then. Take care.